Good evening, parents. This is our online posting of the sword form that all premier advanced students will need to know for their belt test coming up on the 28th. All right. Now I'm posting this video just to make sure that you guys have a nice, good log of the movements and the strikes, the cuts, placement of the cuts and stuff like that, so that the form is nice and crisp, and so you guys get to study it at home. All right, we got the pandemic going on right now, so classes are closed, so you will not be able to access the school and me directly for the sword form. So we're releasing this video out just to help you guys out the movements for the sword form. All right, first of all, let's get this out of the way. A little pre-framing, right? Most of my kids will know this, but parents, you might be interested in this too. All right, this is a samurai sword form. However, this is not a real samurai sword, right? It's straight bladed, fairly short, and of course not sharpened. Still has a cutting edge, but the edge is obviously not sharp. Make sure, parents, please make sure your kids use their authorized premier martial arts swords and not a sharpened sword, not a display sword, not anything like that, because they can hurt themselves, they can hurt anybody that's around them, including you. Okay, so make sure they're using their approved premier martial arts swords. All right, so from here, most of my kids should know their starting points. Okay, we always start in our stays up position. Let me back up a little bit so you guys can see. We got our stays up position, swords on the ground, and we're here on double knees. Remember, for that seiza position, you actually want to be feet flat, resting on the heels. I can't do this extensively because I have toe injuries, so I'm going to have it here, all right? But this is a true seiza position, all right? So from here, right, two hands down, and I bow. I pick it up with my left hand, pass it to my right, make that hole, put that sword in the hole. Make sure your belt is tight, okay? Thinking of a few kids right now, make sure your belt is tight before we get started with this form. If your belt is loose, this sword's gonna fall out, and you don't want it to fall out during your test. So make sure your belt is nice and tight. Make sure your uniform is nice and neat, okay? So from here, once I have it here, my left hand is going to brace my sword and bring it to its side so it's not crossing my body. It's here, and then from here, I'm just gonna stand up, all right? I'm gonna walk a little closer so you guys can see me. And from here, this is when we get started with the actual sword form. That was a little pre-ritual for us to get ready. Now we're getting started, all right? So remember, my right hand is gonna come up and rainbow over my body. When my hand comes down, my left foot goes back, and then I'm gonna turn my body and bend my knees into a horse-like stance. My head is still gonna be facing forward, and this is gonna be our EI stance. Remember that I want the sword parallel to the ground. I don't want it here. If it's down here, that's okay, but the draw is gonna be a little difficult, so make sure it's parallel to the ground. And from here, I'm gonna draw up. When I draw up, I'm gonna straighten my legs until the sword is completely over my head. Now I'm not here. Make sure the sword is nice and parallel. And then from here, my left hand is gonna come out, and I'm gonna come into a high stance, a high front stance specifically. My knees are bent. I have my back foot facing this way, my front foot facing the front in an L stance. And then from here, I'm going to half step forward and cut. Remember, when we cut, that sword does not hit the floor, so we don't angle the blade down. When we cut, the sword stops here midway where it's parallel to the floor, all right? From here, what we're doing is we're gonna look to our right side because an attack is coming from our right side. We're gonna raise our left elbow and block that shoulder. And our right foot is gonna come around the back and cut that open space, all right? Once we cut that open space, the sword's gonna come right back in front, and I'm gonna swing my right foot in front of me to cut the other side. Notice the foot movement. I'm doing what we call tai sabaki, where I'm stepping and turning as I cut. So when I come here, I cut that open space. Good. I step forward with my left to cut up. Then I step forward with my right to cut down. From here, I fold that blade over my bicep and I swing my left foot around and I do a thrust to the back. On that thrust, I'm gonna kia, or kia. All right. From here, I brace my hip for that sheath and I turn for a circle cut. I step in, cut with my left, and then my right foot comes around as I finish the cut and I turn the opposite direction. All right. From here, I hit my high back stance. This is a high back stance here. While this is a high front stance because the sword is in front of me, this is going to be a high back stance because now it's behind me, or at least behind my head. From here, I'm going to point that blade. Notice that when I point the blade, I turn it. Kids, why is this bad? Because you got the cutting edge resting on your arm and you don't want to do that. So you're going to turn it sideways so the flat side is on your arm. And then from here, we have a two-handed thrust. Good. Then from here, I bring the sword to my side here. I brace with my left and I cut to the head here. All right. I don't want to come all the way out here when I cut. I want to come to about right there. All right. From here, I'm going to kick with my right leg. But before I put my foot down, I'm going to spin to the front and cut towards the front. So again, I'm here, I kick, spin, cut, and I kia on that cut. All right. From here, I switch to my reverse grip. Remember, when switching to the reverse grip, kids, you want to start here and use your fingers to change that grip. Okay. You don't want to just throw it up and then catch it. If you do throw it up and catch it and you trust yourself, okay, cool, but make sure your blade is always facing the right direction, all right? You want your blade facing the same direction that your fingers are, all right? You don't want it to be here, because when we go in for that Ronin wipe, you're gonna cut yourself. You want it to be about here, all right? So we did our cut, kia, we switched to our reverse grip. Remember, when we switch to that reverse grip, it's a one-handed grip. So my other hand's gonna be here by my chin, and I'm in a sideways front stance. And what I'm doing is I'm cutting, and as I'm cutting, I'm switching my stances. All I'm doing is going from one side to this side as I'm cutting. So one more time. Good. I raise the sword up, I thrust it down in front, take a knee, I thrust it in front, not to the side. Make sure your body is sideways, parallel to the front, and then this comes down. My left hand braces the pommel on the top. I twist and I kia. Kia to break. Make sure when we twist and kia, excuse me, that blade is facing front. All right, it's not here, it's not here. It's not resting on your leg. All right, from there, we extend our left arm. We place the back of the sword on our left arm. Make sure that the cutting edge is facing up and not down. We fold the arm. We pull for our Ronin wipe. We frame the sword back in front of us. We stand it up. Switch it back to your forward grip. And then we sheath. Okay, so that was your sword form, all right? That was me breaking it down in slow motion for you. Now I'm going to do it again, except there's going to be no instructions, no breakdown. I'm going to do it at performance speed. All right, everybody, so that was your sword form. Remember, I got 2 angles for you. If there are any questions about the sword form, please email, please call, please ask, okay? That test is right around the corner, and I expect everyone, while you're at home practicing your social distancing, that you're also practicing your sword form, okay? Happy training. Wuss.